Laura, welcome to the First 365 podcast. One of the questions I lead off with everybody is, what validates you to talk about money with your clients, with the world, with social media? What validates you to be the one to talk about money with?
So for me, I feel like I have had money and health are the two things that affect everyone, right? And with money, I have had the experience, like the negative experience growing up, like having no money, seeing the negative side, what it can cause. And then the positive side, because I saved 40 grand when I was like between the ages of 19 to 27, and I experienced the positive sides. So that's like my own personal experience that I bring to it. And also as a coach, like I'm a certified financial coach, so you girls got qualifications.
Hello.
Hello. So yeah, I feel like the personal experience of managing your money, saving it, learning how to invest, like I've gone through all the things that everyone wants to do.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about it, obviously I have the knowledge and the research, but I have the first-hand experience.
Yeah.
So that's what validates me, I think.
Okay. Great answer.
So thank you.
When we had our first conversation a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned and we talked about debt. And one of the things I want to speak to you about is some of the stuff we talked about on that call. Why are so many people in debt right now?
Do you know what? I think it's like a combination of things. I think obviously inflation, the economy, like all the kind of stuff that's like out of our control. But I think there's also, because of social media and like, not to get all deep, but like capitalism and the way that we now consume everything, I think that there are so many people that feel constantly like there's a void and they're not looking inside to, you know, fill that void, make themselves happy internally, and it's that like looking externally, and it's so easy to get credit with buy now pay later schemes. People not having a financial education and understanding credit and like what it can do to your credit score, so the accessibility of it, and at the same time being shown everybody else's life that looks amazing. They're going on holidays, they're doing all these things, and then from a young age being like, I want those things now. Yeah. And I think that I read this really interesting article which was about people being in Instagram debt. Yeah. So people that are either trying to be influencers and they're buying new clothes and they're, you know, it's like this constant like new things, or the people who are constantly getting sold to and are just buying things. So I think that has a massive impact. Obviously, also at the same time as like wages not increasing in accordance with inflation.
100%. I feel like I agree with that because every single day we're getting like 120 buying signals for people telling us to purchase something, whether it's on a billboard, a Facebook ad, even a referral from a friend when they've just bought something, they put it in a group chat, whatever. Yeah. And I feel like that has impacted a lot of people because it previously used to be like if you're in your home, unless you had the TV on or the radio on, you wouldn't be advertised to. Yeah. But now it's in your home. A lot of people are using social media in bed. Yeah. So before they go to bed, they're scrolling, they're getting sold to. When they wake up, they're getting sold to as soon as they go in the bathroom. You know what I mean? It's everywhere. Yeah. And you're seeing that have a big kind of impact on the people that you're working with.
Yeah, and I think like one of the biggest things that I get like in my DMs, in my community, when I work with clients, or even when I do workshops and people share after, is overspending. So not being able to stick to a budget or a spending plan, and like the impulsivity of walking down the high street, shop, being on your phone, shop, like all of those things. And it's a real, like I always talk about practicing mindful spending. Yep. So being mindful is like just like checking in with all your body, all your senses, what's going on emotionally. When you can attach that to spending, you understand, or you start to recognize patterns within your spending. And like, it's really classic, you know, I'm stressed, I've had a bad day at work, I'm bored, I'm feeling lonely, or like I'm celebrating, we go spend money. And especially like, I'm sure you're the same. I talk about something with my mates, I go on my phone and I'm like, oh my God, I've got one. Apparently this one's 5 stars and it's on sale. So like, because of the way that our phones are literally in our pockets and then that lack of connection to our emotions, that's definitely one of the biggest things that I work with.
All of your experience now, obviously being qualified, who's better with money, men or women?
Oh, see, that's a subjective question, right? Because what does better with money mean? Because you've got the practical side of money, which is like, I save, I invest, I own a house, I do all of these things. But you also have the emotional side. And like, some things make good financial sense, but don't make good emotional sense. So buying a house, for some people, it's a great investment. But some people, like financially, it doesn't make sense. But emotionally, they're like, I've always wanted a house. I want somewhere to call my own. So it makes sense to make that decision. If I had...
But from your experience, I'm saying, you've worked with many, many people. Is it just women you've worked with, or have you worked with
I
both?
have worked with more women
Yeah.
than I have men. I'm not going to answer that.
I asked her before the podcast, is there anything you won't answer? And now we've
just found something.
within 5 minutes.
I'm not going to answer that.
All right, you don't have to answer it.
But do you think, though, people that come to me are in a position where they're struggling to manage their money, and it's a combination of men and women. So right now, my the people that I've worked with, none of them are good until they've worked with me.
So they've all got equal problems.
Equal problems, yeah.
Okay.
Equality.
So with the overspending that you talked about, what is the triggers for, or what are the triggers for people overspending all the time? Is it emotion? Is it trauma? What's the deal with that?
So when we think about money, right, we think it's a really practical, like, it's numbers, it's spreadsheets, but actually money is so emotional. And I always say, like, your money mindset, which is like your beliefs and attitudes towards money, which affect how you save and spend, that is the foundation. So when it comes to overspending, some of the biggest triggers are like FOMO, financial FOMO, like that's what you end up spending because you see what other people are doing. But triggers, any kind of emotion can trigger people into it, but I would usually say the biggest ones are like stress, boredom, and like a lack of self-worth. It's really common that you don't want to hold on to money because you don't respect yourself or like believe that you're worthy of having money, and that shit is really deep rooted. Like that's the stuff you unpick. But I would definitely say that's probably one of the biggest ones. Like it's just like you're spending because you're like, I want to feel better. But you don't really know why.
Yeah,
So
and it's that vicious cycle as well. Like
cycle.
Whether you own your own business or you're working a job, it's like you're working this job to make this money, so I have to enjoy this money.
Yeah.
And then when you try and spend the money and you don't enjoy it so much at the end of it, you're then like, why the hell was I working so much? Whether it's for yourself or a 9 to 5, whatever. And then it's just this constant repeat of no fulfillment. Yeah. And spending doesn't necessarily solve those problems. But because more people have a lack of money, I'd love to know your opinion on this. In my opinion, more people have a lack of money than those that have an abundance of money and financial independence. And because of that, it's that FOMO that you just mentioned as well. When I'm rich or when I'm financially independent or when I have my own business and I'm making my own money because I'm not capped by a salary, that's when I'm going to feel better and happy. And you feel like that's one of the most common limiting beliefs with the people that you're working with and helping?
I think it's one of those things, that classic, when I've got more money, I'll be happy. But money only solves your money problems. It doesn't solve your happiness problems or your self-worth problems or your relationship problems. Like, it is that classic case of people that do earn loads of money, if they neglect all other areas of your life, like, you're still not happy. It doesn't matter how much you've got in the bank. And it's really common, like, especially with like lottery winners. It's really sad. People that win like millions, there's a really high suicide rate because they don't have a financial education, more so the people that like play the lottery. They win, they get millions, they don't know how to spend it. It's not making them happy, so they're like giving it all of that, trying to
Well, they know how to spend it.
Well, they know how to spend it.
They know how to
They know how to spend it in a way that's going to like last for a really long time. They know how to spend it, you're right.
Yeah, there's no sustainable spending.
No sustainable spending.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to manage it, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And it makes them unhappy, like, you know, and they end up bankrupt and then they're like, shit. So it's like this idea of, I'll be happy when. So I think the limiting beliefs around that is like, you have to work on learning how to manage your money now and also understanding that your net worth is not your self-worth. Like, the two are not connected. It goes both ways. If you're someone that has loads of debt, it doesn't make you a bad person. But if you've got loads of money, it doesn't make you better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And we've all met someone who's got loads of money and is an arsehole. And you're like, you're ruining it for the rest of us.
Him over there!
Hey! So like, so I definitely think that's one of the things. Like, it's like it's disconnecting that money is the answer to your problems.
100%. So I recently went on a podcast a couple of days ago, and it's called It's Not About the Money podcast. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. And
yeah,
awesome.
She's my mentor.
No way.
Yeah.
Big up, Catherine.
Big up,
yeah.
Catherine.
So we were speaking, and we were talking. She asked me the question: how do you want to be introduced on the podcast? Is there a particular way you want to be introduced? And I was like, that's a great question at the time, because previously, you know, I was all wrapped up years ago in this six-figure entrepreneur, multi-six-figure entrepreneur, seven-figure entrepreneur. Oh, seven-figure valued, multi-seven-figure valuation businesses entrepreneur. And I was like, nah, I don't really care. Just say I'm Aaron Branch and I do social media and I run a couple of businesses.
Yeah.
And we talked about that idea of money being pure validation. You know, like when I'm a six-figure entrepreneur, I'm going to be more successful. I'm going to feel more fulfilled. And then we spoke about it, and it reminded me of a story when I was at a networking event. Because who gives a shit if you're multi-six, multi-seven, multi-billion? Who cares? If it changes the way you treat people, I feel like that comes from a place of desperation because you think that you should be treated better once you achieve these things. And I remember this networking event that I went to in London, and this guy, you're just talking, and you'll just jump into a group and you'll start just chatting and say, hey, how can I jump in? And everyone's like, yeah. Well, he jumped in, and we were like, oh yeah, do you want to introduce yourself, mate? And he's like, yeah, I'm a multi-six-figure business owner. And it was like, everyone was just like, everyone just puked on their shoes. It was like so cringy.
Yeah, cringe.
And it's like, why are you attaching your self-image and self-identity to how much money you've done in revenue?
Yeah.
Because I'm not being funny. I've worked with over 1,000 clients. Some of the least kind of experienced, educated people in business have made shitloads of money, and it's timing, it's luck, it's right product, right time, right service, right time, right industry, right time. There's all these different factors. So anybody can make loads of money, so it doesn't mean you're better or you're worse than anybody else. But that was when I thought, ooh, why would I ever want to be introduced as, it's basically the same thing, but on digital platforms.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of pulled away from that.
Yeah.
With you talked about your childhood there a little bit. So what's the deal with your upbringing? So you didn't come from money?
No. Just quickly as well on that, what I was going to say is money is an amplifier as well. So if you are, I believe, if you are a good person, more money is just going to help you do more good. You can give to more charities. You can give to more independently run businesses. You can, do all of those.
Give to your own charities.
Give to your own charities. Myself. But if you're a shitty human, more money is just going to amplify that, and they're the ones that who introduce themselves. Oh, and you're like, no one cares.
Yeah, for real.
So my upbringing. So I've got 3 brothers and sisters, and we were raised in a family where my mum and dad both worked. My dad was a plumber, right? And you'd think making it, but he used to just give everything away for free.
Oh,
he just used to generous with all of his clients.
Yeah.
Obviously that affects the family. You've got 4 kids to feed. Hello.
How's the mom? How's the mom working in this situation with 4 children to
Yeah,
go?
well, she went back to work when I was like 11 or 12.
Oh, that's
so I was old enough to babysit my brothers and sisters.
Oh, so you're the oldest?
I've got an older brother, but
you're second
he was
oldest.
out living his best life.
Yeah.
Second oldest, yeah. So I was looking after my younger brother and sister, and my mum was working, and she was trying to juggle raising 4 kids as well as doing that. It was hard. And I remember when my younger brother came along, family holidays stopped. The 4th kid really added a lot of pressure.
It's expensive.
It's so expensive.
People don't realise.
Crazy. My mum always is we had to get a bigger car. That's the 4th kid is always the maximizer.
Mate, the first kid's the maximizer, mate.
I mean, look, I'm child free, so I'm living my best life.
Yeah, for real. I've just had 2 children. You have no idea. Yeah. It's not like they are, extremely expensive, but those balances add up. Yeah. The food, the clothes, the trips, the entertainment of keeping them active, keeping them engaged. Yeah. Then you've got, if you do use childcare, you've got nursery services, which we use, and then we pulled him out because we weren't enjoying the whole situation of his development. But then if he comes home, now our income's at a loss even further because less time can be spent working. Yeah. And I've just surrendered to that. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm not in scale-up mode. I'm not in let's grow. I'm in fatherhood mode. Yeah. And also I'm running businesses there's a balance that I've just accepted. Yeah. But in your household, that 4th kid was just...
Yeah, and I think it's it was one of those things, where it just became the norm. My mum and dad my dad was out all the time, obviously my mum's back more, but I definitely experienced the negative side of money, the stress that it can cause on a family, the impact that it has. And like, you know, no one was educated then on like the emotional side of money and the things you were saying and the impact it has. And like my dad would always be like, money doesn't grow on trees, you know, like money, you can't just magic money out of the air, like it's really hard to make, you know, I'm working all the time and da-da-da. And I always heard, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So by the time I was 16 and got my first ever job at Argos, big up, team leader, don't worry about it.
Cleaning division. Nothing wrong with the cleaning division. I've actually got cleaning clients.
I actually, when I got into A-levels, I actually started cleaning the school. I used to do my A-levels and then I would stay after.
Okay, so this kind of mindset of hard work and working from a young age is what you're really telling me, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, because technically I started work when I was 15 and like I got into, and it's so interesting, right? I got into work and your money story, so like what happened to you when you're younger to do with money, you're not necessarily going to act the exact same as your parent figures. Yeah. You're more going to take on what happened, internalize it, it's going to turn into some kind of belief, and then it'll manifest in a different way as an adult. So for me, I saw, you know, my dad working all the time, not having any money. I internalized this belief that like making money is hard, and like even when you work really hard, you're only just going to have enough to survive. So when I got into work, I was like, I need to hold on to my money. So I literally became a saver, like straight up. Hoarder. I was like a hoarder. But it came from a place of like lack and fear, because I was like, oh, if I don't hold on to this, it's never going to come back. And that kind of like carried on for, you know, until I started to work on my money mindset.
Is there a particular time where you remember in your childhood that you were like conscious about money and the impact it's having on your lifestyle and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if I was out with my mates and stuff, you know, I had mates who their parents would give them money, like, oh, they're going out, here's some money, and, you know, I would obviously work or whatever, and there being that thought process of like, oh my God, right, I've got to work, I'm trying to do my exams and stuff, I want to go on nights out, I want to go out with my mates, I want to do that stuff, and I could feel I couldn't just go ask my parents for money. Like, that wasn't an option.
What would they say if you asked them for money?
They'd be like, you're joking. We ain't got none. You know, like, that would be my dad's, you know, my dad would be like, what do you want me to give you? Like, you know.
Yeah. What area did you grow up in?
Stevenage in Hertfordshire.
Okay.
So.
Is that a nice area, rough area?
It's not super rough, but like, it's not the nicest. Do you know what I mean? It's all right. It's a bit better now, but I don't want to live there. I mean, anyone listening to this is like, oh, Steve.
Everyone from your hometown's like, what's she going to say about Stevenage?
I'm like, Lewis Hamilton's from Stevenage, and one time he called it the, what did he say? He said he's like got rags to riches story. He said it was like, I can't remember what he said about Stevenage.
Did he say it was the arsehole of Hertfordshire?
Basically.
That's how someone described a place in Leeds that they were from.
Really?
Yeah.
It was something like that.
It's the arsehole of Leeds.
He called it something, and everyone was like, oh my God, are you joking? It's not that bad.
Oh, right.
But he was trying to like make a point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think as well, I remember being at like in a position where in my head from 16, I was like, if I want something, I have to get it for myself. Like, wow. The one thing I was lucky is like my mum would always find the money to send me to school trips. Like, I always got to do school trips. My mum was amazing for that. It had such an impact. Like, you know, they're so good for your development and your friendships and stuff. But yeah, from like when I started earning money, I was like, right, I've got to figure this shit out for myself.
Yeah. Was it the same for your siblings, or did any of them have a more cushioned ride?
I think we all kind of had like slightly different. So my older brother.
Living the life.
Living his best life.
Out there,
do you know.
Hustling.
Hustling, trying to figure it out. I mean, we probably had all quite similar. When I actually think about it, we probably were all in a similar, like, position. Everyone started work young and whatnot. Okay, me and my older brother had more holidays until my other brother and sister came on, and we were like...
And they could see the photos.
The
old Kodaks. Yeah.
What about us? But yeah, I think it's interesting one though, like when you look back, because obviously I do this work, I've like gone into my money story, I've looked back over my childhood, I've like done all of that stuff.
Analysed it,
I've analysed it, and like, I wouldn't change it for the world though. 100%. I wouldn't change it because it's...
Cool. Let's talk about social media, because you're having a lot of success as a creator in your own right. What do you think is the biggest positive that you're receiving from your social media output right now?
So I think, relatability. I always get messages like, I think because I'm a young female and I'm talking about money, especially investing, everyone is like, oh my God, you're so relatable. And I love that because I share my story like, I only learned how to invest like a couple of years ago, and I remember being in a position where I was like, I don't have a fucking clue what half of this shit means. So I went and learned it and figured it out, and then I'm like sharing it in a way that's just easy to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, gals, we need to be doing this.
Amazing.
Like, so I think that.
What's the biggest negative from your social media output, if there was one?
The biggest negative, probably, I wouldn't even say trolls because I don't care about them. Like, I'm like, bring it on. Maybe I haven't had a troll that's been that bad yet, but like just shitty little comments.
Yeah.
The negative, do you know what? The negative probably is the fact that because I've built my business from social media, the fact that I feel I have to show up all the time, it can be tiring.
Yeah.
And I love showing up. Like, I'll be on stories like, what's up, guys? And then sometimes
you're not on it.
I can't be asked.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually, before the close friends subscription service on Instagram was actually a real thing, I actually pioneered that for myself. So what I did was, I was obviously here every day in the agency, and I was like, guys, you want the real behind the scenes that I can't share with the world because only for agency owners, the pain of running an agency and the real challenges. Subscribe, I think it was £35 a month. I'm gonna add you to my close friends on my stories, and I'm gonna tell you every day the reality of what's going on. And then I did it for a month and I stopped it because of exactly that. Number one, now these people have invested and they're waiting for content. I have to make a video every day. So now it's like, I'm driving to the office and I'm like, what am I going to talk about today? Yeah. And then after 30 days, what I started to realize was I'm saying the same stuff because there's not that many variables when running and managing a social media agency. Yeah. Oh, we've got the sales team, we've got the delivery team, we've got clients in, we've got people on shoots. Like, I kind of maxed out my variables and it was overwhelming and exhausting because you're just repeating yourself in the end. And when people are paying you, or it's your main source of leads and introducing your brand to new customers, that's also probably a heavy weight on your shoulders. Yeah, it's like showing up. Like, I've started to talk about other things other than just money. Like, I started off as a personal finance content creator, and I still am, but like I've started talking about dating as well. Right. Yeah, I saw that. You're speaking about, you've just started dating again, haven't you? Yeah, a couple of months in. How's it going? Hell. No, it's fun. That's just so sad for anybody you've been on a date with. They're like, it's the wild, wild west out there. Block. Well, the thing is, I've got a couple of them on my Instagram. So they're like, oh, you got Instagram? Hello. Like, I do talk about, I'm probably going to talk about this date, so you can follow me at your own risk. Wow, okay. But I'm just doing it for like fun. Like, I'm not like ready to settle down. Like, I still want to go traveling. I still want to do all that stuff. I'm just doing it because I'm like, meet new people, get all dressed up. So you're dating guys, girls, non-binary? Combination. Okay. Bring it on. Let's go. Let's go. I'm here for it all. With obviously your previous relationships then, have you ever been in a long-term relationship? No, I've been single my whole life. Okay. Is there a reason for that? So, there's not like... That sounded so lonely when you said it. I've been single my whole life. Do you know what? I posted a TikTok video about this recently because whenever I say I've been single my whole life, everyone is like, what's wrong with you? Or if it's intentional. Semi-intentional. You kind of have to say it's intentional, otherwise you're like... I really tried. No. So I'm getting back into dating after getting back into dating 6 times before, and it ain't worked out. No, it sort of was like semi-intentional. Like, I'm very career driven. That's what I mean. Like, you've been working from such a young age. Yeah. Your actual time for relationships must have had an impact because of this mindset you've grown up with. And I'm a very like, I love my friends. I've got like, I love them to bits, and they mean so much to me. I've got a lot of them, and they need my time. I want to give them my time, and I'm very much like, what I will say is I've cultivated a single independent life that I love so much. I'm now at a point where I'm like, unless you're gonna really add something of value and we can match energies, I don't want to give you access to me. What does that mean in terms of, what does a male or so are you dating both genders right now? Yeah, basically. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've been on many dates. So what does somebody have to bring to the table to equate to that value that you're looking for in a relationship after being single for 8+ years? I think they first of all have to be someone who understands my lifestyle, and they have their own life. They have their own friends. They don't have to be a business owner, like that doesn't bother me, but you know, a career that they love, or like I want them to be a whole person already, as opposed to that like, I'm looking for some, you know, my missing puzzle piece and the half of me. I'm like, no, I'm not half of anyone. I'm a whole person, you're a whole person. And you know, someone that has interests, someone that has hobbies, someone that
has a zest for life.
Yeah.
You know, like I went on a date with a guy recently, and he was like, "Oh, you run your own business? That's really cool." Normally, guys find it really intimidating. They're a bit like, "Oh." You know, like the guys that I've dated. Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, that's cool, you're ambitious." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "Oh, I'm not really that ambitious. That's probably not very attractive to you, is it?" And we just sat there in silence for probably like 30 seconds. Wow. And I was like, I don't really know what to say. So I think they were just like, you know, someone who adds to my life because they're already whole.
What a vibe kill.
Literally,
you said that on a date? Oh, great one, mate.
Yeah, cheers.
Whoa. Let's get another round. I don't know why I'm Australian now. He wasn't Aussie, no.
It wasn't Australian. Yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, I think like someone who can bring something.
Yeah, someone who's got something about them is the main thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's independent or they work a job, it doesn't really matter as long as they've got their own thing going. They've got a focus. Yeah. It sounds like from a psychological point of view, you're looking for someone who's focused and driven and knows what they want. Yeah. Do you feel like your criteria list is a bit exhaustive for anybody you go on dates with because you have such a particular level of human you're looking for?
Potentially. I don't think I'm you know, like for me, one of my top things is that you've got to be funny. Like I'm a funny girl. Yeah. So we've got to be able to match energies. Yeah. Like that, and interesting. I need you to be interested. I need you to keep me captivated because I've got a lot of things going on. But I wouldn't say it's an exhaustive list. I think maybe fast forward a couple of years, if I'm still single and I'm like ready to settle down, maybe I've got to knock back the criteria. However, I'm very much a believer that I'm not going to settle.
Just keep exit. All right, I'm willing to negotiate on ambition.
Yeah, that can all.
Maybe that guy will still be available. Who knows? Have you got?
If you're listening to this,
put him on your close friends list. Oh my
Just
God.
him on it. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
Makes sense.
But I'm running a business, and I'm like, that is my main focus right now.
But to the detriment of your romantic relationships.
Yeah. Potentially.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't mind. Having a good time.
What about your siblings? Are they all in love?
One is in a long-term relationship. My older brother is like a serial dater, so he's always got some girlfriend on the go. And my younger brother was. They still live in Stevenage, and like I do think there is a different mentality when you live in London. Like they see me as like, oh, Laura lives in London, and she like runs her own business, and she's like, you know. And they were like, why haven't you brought someone home yet? Don't talk to me.
Well, I don't even come home myself.
Why am I going to bring someone?
Yeah. With your previous role, so we spoke about it, you actually have come from the agency space, the marketing world. Tell us a little bit about that. What were you doing in the agency space?
So I decided I didn't want to go to uni.
Yeah.
I was going to go to drama school, which is when I was like, right, leave A-levels, get a job, save up 15 grand because that's how much it costs to go to drama school. And I was like, I'll just get a job. Like I was working in a bar at the time, and I applied for this job through Job Seekers.
Were you a team leader there as well?
I was more than that. Actually, I was a manager. I had a team of people. I don't know how I got the job because I actually sent an email and I spelt the director's both of his names wrong, both of them. And you know, you're like first impressions.
You outreached for the role.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I was like 18, and came in, had a couple of interviews, and like started as an account exec. But like, so I ended up staying there for 10 years.
Wow.
And I was account exec, account manager, and had my own team. Went traveling, and quit. And I was like, you know, like, because the story is that I had this 15 grand. I was going to go to drama school, and then a couple of weeks before I was due to go, two of my best friends were like, Laura, we're going to go traveling. Do you want to come? And I had this moment where I was like, which do I do? I've got a lifelong dream where I've got the money for it, but also like traveling the world with your two best mates, and I had the money, and I was like, fuck it. So I chose to go traveling, and we went to Australia, Bali, Thailand, New Zealand, like the best ever, and I spent all the money, and I have no regrets. And when I came back, my boss was like, we want you back, and I came in as a business development manager. So I used to I got a company car, would get, you know, commission, used to drive around the country. I remember I came to Birmingham once actually, and I went the wrong way up a one-way system.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was fun. And then I ended up also had a bit of a role as like account director. So like I literally have been through, I've done the whole thing.
Agency
because it's a small
ecosystem.
agency, I wore all the hats,
Yeah,
did a bit of project management, I did a bit of this, did a bit of
Yeah.
that.
What do you think the best things about being in the agency space have taught you?
Oh my God. One of the things that I think that have helped me now is learning how to pitch.
Yeah.
Like part of my job was like once I'd seen a client or we saw potential, I would create the pitch deck either in like presentation or like kind of like PDF form, and like understanding how to sell the services, like selling a problem and selling the,
No wonder
No
you're
one
not
sells
working in the game anymore.
Selling the solution. I'm just selling the problem. I am the problem.
Well, you do have to sell the problem. They need to discover the problem.
They need
Half
to
of them don't know
yeah.
what the problem is.
Exactly. Helping them find the problem and selling the solution. I think that probably has been one of the biggest things. And my confidence levels of just like meeting new people, turning up and being like, yo. I didn't say yo.
Yeah.
Like, hello.
Some clients you might.
Yeah, some. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so that experience of pitching was really valuable.
Yeah, really valuable.
You feel like it kind of transcends all the different things you're doing now.
Completely. Yeah. And that is where, for me, I learnt my skills with like spreadsheets and money, because I was doing all the sales, like margin, like, okay, if I do this deal, how much margin, how much profit can I make? And that helped me even with my own personal finances, because I got so comfortable with numbers and spreadsheets and like all of that stuff. So,
sounds like this business would have been at a big loss when you decided not to carry on.
Yeah. I mean,
How did that go? How did you break up after 10 years? You've worked for a business for 10 years. Yeah. You've worn pretty much every hat. You've developed, you've made more money, you've grown, you've gone, you've come back, and now you're like, I'm leaving, goodbye, God bless.
God bless. Yeah. So my boss, he's not actually that much older than me. Like, he's amazing, and he sort of like took me under his wing. I was this little like right-hand woman. We used to do everything together, and I tried obviously quitting to go to drama school. So that was about 3 years in, and then obviously quit to go traveling. Came back. Then I decided to move to London. Tried to quit, and he was like, please don't leave. Like, why don't you work from home? So I started working from home literally years ago. When no one was really doing it. So I was like at home on my own, and everyone else was like in an office, and I was like, But it was cool for the flexibility. Tried to leave again when I sat at my blog, and then he was like, why don't you go to part-time? So I had all of these like incremental like moments
shifts
where I nearly left, and then my job role changed. Maybe I dropped hours, my role changed, and then it wasn't until July last year, so only like 7-8 months ago, where I was like, I really, my business now is so busy, I cannot give this my full time.
Yes.
It's very sad.
So do you feel like transitioning into entrepreneurship, it's better to replace your income and get that security first, or do you feel like this trending thing of burn the boats, go 100% on plan A of building your business, which route do you think is the best?
In my opinion, I prefer the former. I prefer make sure that what it is that you're doing can bring you an income, and that you have already got like proof of concept, and you don't have to be necessarily making enough to replace your income, but you need to have a safety buffer, you need to have an emergency fund, you need to have money that you can live off of. Because I basically say I had 12 grand saved, and I was like, when I do quit, I will live off of that so that I can reinvest the money back into the business. If I hadn't have had that, there's so much pressure then to make sales, to like, and you go at it with a different energy. Yeah. I think you're a bit more scrappy, you're a bit more desperate. So I think that can have an impact on like the way that you attract wealth, the way that you attract clients, the way you show up to jobs. So I think that if you can like, there can be a bit of a smoother transition. It's better, but I also appreciate I'm really lucky that I had a boss who was so supportive and did let me do part-time. I literally, by the time I left, I was doing 2 days a week, and I could do them whenever I wanted. So it was like that. I'm so lucky, and I'm very aware of that privilege. But I also did work there for 10 years to get there. But I think if you can do it slowly and know that what you're creating, you've got something that's definitely security, especially in this economy.
And kind of de-risk the situation a little bit.
Because it makes it more enjoyable, right? Because as we know, if you've got a side hustle or you've got a hobby and you're trying to make money from it, the second you turn it into something where you are making money, the enjoyment decreases, like on a psychological level. So you have to be so committed to it, especially if it is like social media and stuff.
100%. Got a question for you. So if you didn't make a success financially of the business within that time, you've burnt through your savings, would your ego have got in the way of you going back to a 9-to-5 or even the same job? Would you have had that chip on your shoulder to say, you kind of, people talk about it all the time. I had to consider it after 3 months of launching this business 7 years ago. I had no money, no sales. I had a loan of 4K, which just survived me for that 3-month period. And then only once I got some coaching, and I literally used credit cards to pay this coach, and he taught me how to actually do this stuff. That's when I started actually getting revenue through the door properly. And I was literally at that desperation moment. Either I pay this guy the last pounds to my name, or I'm gonna have to go back and find a job somewhere else. And for me, that was a big thing, because my ego back then was like 110, like I am the man, I'm an entrepreneur, I can do it all on my own. I had all these crazy belief systems. Did you have that kind of thought in your mind where if this doesn't work, would you have gone back to your job?
So I think when I did my financial coaching qualification, and you go through it, and obviously you learn and unpick your own money beliefs, and I obviously understood one of the reasons why took me so long, but like a couple of years to quit, was this belief around like being able to make money in my own business. So when I did get to that point and I'd unpicked that and I'd, you know, rewired my subconscious to believe that I could and then started doing it, in my head there was no plan B. It was like, this is gonna work, but I'd already proved that to myself. But if I had to think, like, my boss always said, you've always got a job, like, if that you ever want to come back. And I do think in that scenario, I'd have been a little bit butthurt, like, oh man, I didn't make it work. But I don't think it wouldn't have killed me. Like, I would have been humble enough to be like,
Fair
I'll come
play.
back, and you know.
That's hard to do, you know what I mean? Do you feel like you made the right decision at the right time for this business, or was that, you know, was there an initial struggle phase which you thought, oh, it would have been nice to have that secured income for them 2 days a week?
Yeah, I think by the time I did it, because I toyed with it literally for like 3 years. So that period, I was obviously like building my savings and stuff. And at the time, you're like, I should have done it sooner, this, you know. But actually, when I look at it, I'm a massive believer that everything happens in perfect time and as it should. And I think I left at the right time.
Amazing.
Because it was getting to the point where like that job was really stressing me out because I didn't have the love for it anymore.
Yeah.
And this stuff was like taking off. And I was like,
new.
I'm just, it's new and exciting.
Yeah.
And also, we are in a time where like people do need the help with their money now.
Yes.
And I think
more than ever.
More than ever, yeah. And it's like such, as shitty as it is, the place that the economy is and the way that people feel about money, financial education is like so needed. Yeah. And like me going full time then felt right.
Yeah.
And no
with the habits that you mentioned about, you know, overspending, what are, you know, majority of your clients are women. So what are women overspending on the most?
I think that it's a lot of the time either socialising, you're living in London, you're going out, you're having cocktails, you're having a good time with your mates, or like beauty stuff, like clothes and makeup and hair. And like this is the thing, difference between men and women on a whole is like men don't have to uphold beauty standards in society the same way that women do.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I know. Shock horror. Like, you can rock up, you don't have to, I mean, you can wear makeup if you want, but you know what I mean? Like, women are held to a different standard. And that shit is expensive.
Or judged by a different standard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think, like, so probably those kind of stuff is so individual. Like, so personal finance is so personal, but they're probably the most things. Okay,
let's talk about this 15 Gs and then 40 Gs that I've obviously heard you mention that you raised or saved between the ages of 18 to 27?
19 to 27.
19 to 27. So you've saved 40 grand cash.
Cash.
In the bank.
Cold hard cash.
Dirty money.
Dirty money.
And you put that in the bank for that whole period of time. How does somebody go about saving £40,000 raw cash?
Raw cash. So it was broken down, right? So that when I was 19 to 22, I saved 15 grand and then spent it all, saved travelling. Came back, moved to London, and then between the ages of like 25 to 27, I saved another 25 grand. The biggest thing that helped me when it came to that was paying yourself first. So this is easier if you have a regular wage, if you're on a salary, which at the time I was. So on payday, you sit down with your money and you have a money date, which is like literally taking your money on a date. And you look at your finances and you go, right, I'm going to make a plan for it. What are the things that I need to spend money on, my necessities to stay alive? And normally what people do is with whatever's left over, they spend and then they just go, at the end of the month, I'll see what's left over to save. But you flip it round and you go, no, I'm going to pay my future self first. So I'm going to put X amount into my savings and then I'll spend what is left over. So doing that process was a game changer because it was like a non-negotiable that I was saving and I just had to make do with whatever was left over. And it builds this habit of like, and confidence in yourself that you are a saver and that you can save and that like it is possible for you. Obviously I was a delusional 19-year-old, like being like, yeah, I'm gonna save 15 grand. There was no like thought in my mind that it wouldn't happen. I just was like,
why was that your target?
Because drama school costs 15 grand a year and at the time, you can get it, it's attached to a uni and you can get a loan straight up like you would, but at the time you would have to pay for it up front. I obviously, the fact you go for 3 years, so I don't know how I thought I was going to pay for the remaining 2 years or to live in London, but I was just like 15 grand, you know.
So you wanted to be an actress?
I wanted to be an actress, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you're living with actresses right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's that like?
I love it. I love it. It's so fun. Like, I think I'm a big believer in like, as you get older, keeping that like playful sense, like that inner child.
Yeah.
I think you get old, you get responsibilities, you get a job, and you get all serious and stressed out. But like being able to play and acting is, you're just role playing, aren't you? Like you're just pretending to be other people. So our house is we've got a very creative household. Like downstairs, we've got like the paints out. We're always crafting. Obviously, I get to help them with their like self tapes. I'm always getting to do little bits of acting, and it's just a really fun household.
Like you're the script reader on the other side for them, so they go through scenes.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll do this role. Yeah, I'll be Polly.
How did you meet them, the actresses? Because you didn't go to drama school, so how did you actually end up living with two? You've got this obsession with.
I'm like seeking them out.
Hunting them down. Was it an outreach email like that manager role?
It was me messaging everyone on LinkedIn. So when I was like between the ages of 16, 17, so like to 20-ish, 22-ish, I would go to a weekend drama school. So I was still training, but I just didn't go full time. Yeah. And one of them was actually my teacher. One of them was my drama teacher, and we stayed in touch. And then obviously when I wasn't there anymore, we just stayed in touch, and then we became really good friends. Yeah.
No way, that's cool.
So cool.
What do you think the impact's been of that training that you've done in drama? Because obviously you have massive presenter skills, and your public speaking is one of your stronger skill sets, I'd say. What else has drama school given you that you've been able to apply to your business, to your career?
So much. Like I think you're like the presenting, the ability to talk on camera. Like I've done loads of jobs where I filmed video content for like an app, a well-being app, or like that, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the ability to sit down in a chair and talk to camera, read off of a teleprompter, or just talk really candidly about a topic has been insight. Like I would not have been able to do that had I not had that training. It's you learn how to just speak on camera and like pick up a script and just read it. But also confidence. Like I literally every weekend, you're in a dance class, you're doing a brand new dance routine, or you're learning a new script. You've got to just get up in front of everyone and like you trust the people that are there not to laugh at you. But you build a skill that is like resilience because you do fuck up and learning to be rejected. So when I was 19, I got an agent. And the one job I did do, I was in an advert for Dave, the channel Dave. I was in an advert, but when...
It was around back then, 10 years ago, Dave was a thing.
Yeah, I know. It's probably like, the advert's probably somewhere on YouTube.
Yeah.
But apart from that one job, you would go to a casting, you would walk into a room, and there would be 10 other people that looked like you, they're dressed like you, because obviously they put out a call, like, small blonde girl. Yeah. So I turn up like, well, hey, and then I'm like, oh my God, there are 10 of me. And you get
Avatars.
Rejected, literally. You get rejected, like, and you learn to get rejected and it be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing in it, when you get into business, you have to be okay with, like, not everyone saying yes, not everyone. So I just feel like it taught me emotional resilience. I was like, reject me, I don't care.
I remember when I was in London at uni, we were part of obviously the basketball program. That's what I used to be all about, basketball. And Adidas had a recruitment campaign in London. So they reached out to all the local clubs, like Brixton is who I played for. And they invited, they said anyone who's up for it, they're casting basketball players, and they want real basketball players to be extras around the main celeb, whoever that athlete was. Yeah. So I went to it, and it was my first and only audition. Well, actually, no, because I've been on Dragon's Den, so it's like audition, but it's not acting, but it's still pitching, but whatever. Yeah. So I went to this Adidas audition for a basketball shoot, and there's loads of basketballers there, right? And now you're looking at yourself, just like you said, oh, wow, he looks more like a basketballer than me. He looks better for the role than me. And then we walked into this dance studio, and there's 3 people sitting there. And there's a ball on the floor, and there's mirrors everywhere so you can see yourself. And they're like, okay, show us what you can do. No brief, no nothing. Like, what do you want me to do? Just stand here, hold the ball? Do you want me to just, spin it on my finger? You know what I mean? I could never do that, by the way. So then I'm like, okay. So then I started bouncing the ball, and I'm like, okay. They're like, just go for 60 seconds, Go where?
Go where?
Like with basketball, you're supposed to go in a direction, you're supposed to have some productivity. But I was never I was a very functional basketball player. I was never style and showmanship wasn't my thing. And I just started bouncing the ball, and then I literally went through, I was bouncing this ball, which was slightly deflated. So it was like I was proper having to hammer it because it wasn't bouncing up. The floor was so slippy, So I'm there slipping. And then I'm doing the same moves, like putting the ball through my legs, back and forth, and I ran out of things to do because I was bouncing it so fast. And I'll never forget, I'd never done this before, and I'll never forget walking out that room, and I was just so embarrassed.
So embarrassed.
And I could just see in their faces, they must have pissed themselves laughing afterwards, because they must have been like, what was he on? Like, because he was so like,
So is this guy
and
going
nowhere
else?
and slipping all over the show. And that was my first
like
experience of a real serious audition that I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
So your story there reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah,
That's
and they can be intense. Like you turn up and they're like, right, especially like.
How
in
long
the
would
acting world.
for an actress or an actor? How long would like an audition be if you were going for like a movie role or like a drama series or whatever?
So usually, like, let's say you were going for like a lead, like you've got a thing for it, so we want you to read for this part. Usually, like, get a script, you get to read it. You might do a self-tape, so you send it in. You obviously got to have someone acting. If they call you in, usually, you can be in and out of the room. Like, you travel all the way, you could be in and out of the room within 5 minutes. Like, if they felt you weren't right. But if you were like doing well and they carried on like workshopping it with you, maybe like half an hour, and then sometimes they bring the other actor if there's like a main part, and then you might have to act with them because they also have to like do chemistry tests to make sure.
Yeah.
So it literally can range, but you could literally like work really hard for this audition, like turn up, you go in, you read, and they go, "Thank you, nice to meet you," and you go, "Okay, I'll just leave now. I'll just see myself out." Like, obviously, if it's like a musical theatre one, and you're going, you know, you might have like a singing call and or like an acting call, dancing call, and they can be a bit more intense. But
yeah, and that was your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it helped a lot.
It helps so much, like so much. Like I realised it wasn't the life for me because it's really intense. You have to be so passionate about it, and I love it.
Yeah.
But I'd also been working a job for however many years, making a regular salary, which you're not going to just straight up get as an actress. And I was like, I don't want to get rid of that.
Yeah, getting comfortable.
Yeah,
and getting older as well.
And then when I was in Australia, I was like, maybe I'll set up a blog.
Yeah, but never say never. You could still get into to being an actor.
100%. I think when I'm like 50, I'll like get back into it.
Yeah, you've got all these actors that are older when they get started.
Yeah.
What's his name? Morgan Freeman. Yeah, he started really late.
Really late. Helen Mirren, she was like 60.
Yeah. Never say never.
Never say never.
What are some of the kind of pieces of advice? You know, you mentioned mentors and coaches. What are some of the pieces of advice that they've given you in your journey that really resonated, that you can remember?
So I think one of the things that always, two things that stick with me is one is about being myself. Like, I think it can be so easy, especially when you're on social media, to get wrapped up in what other people are doing, and like, especially when it comes to money, because of the way that money is viewed. Like, I want to make money fun and relatable, and I'm very much one of those coaches who isn't going to tell you need to cut back on your oat milk lattes or your avocado on toast. Like, if that brings you joy, oh my God, love that for you. Just cut out on the shit that doesn't bring you joy. And it can be easy to fall into the trap of not sharing advice that I authentically feel, because you're like, oh, I don't want to go against the grain. So like, really just being confident in who I am and just showing up. That's a big one. What
would you say your weaknesses are with money to this date? Because none of us are perfect. When did you start getting, do you start getting urges to buy things? Oh my God, what are your kind of triggers and weaknesses yourself?
The place that I spend most money, where I really struggle to say no, is food. I love eating out. Like, even if I set myself a budget, I struggle. When I'm then out with my friends, if there's something on the menu that's just super expensive, I'm like, I want it. I just want it. Like, I know I set myself a £20 budget, but I want that £50 lobster pasta. Like, I can't help it. I just love food.
In London as well. The worst place to be.
I know, and then it's like, and there's £20 service charge, and you're like, cool.
Yeah, but that reminds me of Burger and Lobster that we used to love going to, but it was like £30 a head. Yeah. And plus the tip. Yeah. So you're walking out there just with drinks under £100. Yeah.
So easily
and
done.
You're a student.
Yeah. And you're like, ooh. I actually went to Burger and Lobster once on a date, and I accidentally flicked lobster at the guy.
Easily done.
Easily done. Yeah, that was fun.
They give you bibs.
Yeah.
Were you wearing a bib?
I was wearing a bib.
Cool.
It's cute.
Cool.
So I'd definitely say like eating out. I just love it. Yeah. When I was younger, I was so like when I was 18, 19 and I was saving the 15 grand, I was meticulous with my planning. Like every day I would go out, I'd go to Boots, get a little meal deal, come home, go on my spreadsheet, £3.50, and everything was tracked.
Amazing.
Everything. But as you get older, your spending and your budgeting, it changes. Yeah. So I definitely got more relaxed. I think now my biggest problem is that I've gone from being in a decent salaried job knowing what I'm getting in, where it's coming from, and it being a good salary, to running my own business, having to scale back because, I paid myself a really minimum salary whilst I was getting started, but not changing my spending habits.
Yes.
And then being like, oh, wait, right now I can't have this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like I need to rein it in a little bit. Even though I know the trajectory of the business and what I want to achieve in the future.
Yeah. What are some of the best tools? Do you have any apps or anything like that you'd recommend for saving money, managing and tracking your spending habits?
So I created this spreadsheet when I was 18 and I've used it for my spending planning ever since then. That's what's helped me save 40 grand. So I give it, it's free, it's a downloadable, I give that to everyone and it basically tracks, you put in what your income is, what your expenses are, what your financial goals are, and it calculates it all and it tells you how much to leave in your bills account and how much to move on to a spending account, which is another thing, if you're trying to save, having two separate accounts, one for your bills money, so you don't even need to think about it, and then a separate account for your spending, so that you never have to worry you're spending your bills money, and you can just go, this is what I've got for the month.
Where can people access that? If they wanted to get it from you?
I've got, hopefully my website will be going live very soon, but I have a link in my bio on Instagram.
What's your Instagram username, just in case anyone was like, yo, I need to get that?
At Laura_Ann_more.
And without an E.
And without an E, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Obviously it's all so new and this is the first 365 and I think it's really important that we talk about some of the roadblocks that you see ahead because growing a business isn't easy, doing it alone isn't easy without a team. What are some of the challenges that you see ahead as a startup and how do you feel like you're going to be able to overcome them?
So I think based on what I'm experiencing now is I say yes to too much. If you look at my calendar, it's mental. And I think it's so hard to know what stuff, I did this job once, it was free and it was a workshop and I spent loads of time creating it and off the back of that, someone that came to the workshop hired me and it was an amazing job. Had I not done that original free job, I wouldn't have got that. And I think it's so hard to know the balance of what to do for free and to give your time away versus what to do paid. That's definitely one thing.
How do you make decisions about that?
Before I didn't, I would just go, yes, sure. Now I'm getting, coming into 2023, I'm I need to have better boundaries. So I'll ask myself, does it align with what my mission is, that I'm trying to do, moving forwards? And just, it sounds silly, but more of a feeling. Does it feel good?
Intuition.
Does it excite me? Yeah, just a bit of my intuition.
Yeah,
I know I'm going to get it wrong at some point, but see what happens.
But I think you have to have that element of saying yes in business to more than you say no to, regardless of what stage you're at. One of the things that I stopped doing when my business started growing substantially was I started saying no or just ignoring messages from invitations to speak at events and do collaborations. And because we were running our own events, it was why would I attend someone else's event or speak at someone else's event when people can just come and see me at mine? And that changed when I stopped running events because it's exhausting. And then I started attending more networking stuff and I've been to 3 in the last year. But that's a big thing for me because previously I was nah, no time, can't be bothered. And I feel like you have to have that curiosity because you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, I love doing the talking stuff, meeting people in person. That's one of my favourite parts of it when I do panels, when I do podcasts and stuff like that. So it's understanding when my energy is best.
And what you enjoy the most.
What I enjoy the most. I know, even if I am doing it for free, I know I'm going to have a good time doing it. And I'm building a skill, especially when you are talking, it's a skill that you learn. So you weigh it up, don't you?
Final question. What is the best piece of advice that you can give to somebody else in their first 365 of starting to save money?
I think make sure that you are aware and you have real clarity on what your goals and values are. Because when it comes to saving and spending, whether it's in a business or personal, knowing who you are and what it is that you're trying to create is only going to help you say yes and no to things that either allow you to save more or spend more. And I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in taking on other people's goals. Oh, I think I should buy a house. Oh, I think I should run my business like this. But get really clear yourself first on what it is that you want.
I've got another question actually that just popped up. Final question.
Final
question. How much of an impact do people's partners have on them trying to save and be financially secure and sensible? How much does a partner have on that equation being successful? Because I know and I can imagine that there's people out there who want to save money, they want to become financially independent and secure and get their goals on track, but they have a partner who isn't on board with it, who still has not committed to the plan or a spending plan or a budgeting plan. How much of that is active right now in relationships?
So, massive. It's a huge proportion of like the impact that your partner has on your finances, because you have to be aligned. That's the thing. And money conversations in relationships are hard. Like, that's what people, you know, not that I'm speaking from experience, but like...
Well, you are, because you've got clients who are in relationships.
Exactly. And because we have certain like personality types and money stories and money beliefs, when it's you on your own, you get to work through them, rewire them, decide what you want, and you just go for it. You don't have any obstacles from other people. When you're in a relationship and your money is joint, you have to take into account the fact that you might be a saver, they might be a spender. You might really value spending money on experiences and travel, but they might value spending money on, you know, food and material things. So you have to have really open and honest conversations with your partner and get really clear. And if there is a real misalignment, you do have to ask yourself, like, well, is this the person that I want to spend, you know, spend the rest of my life with? Because my finances are joint with them. Yeah. It's like, the crossover is huge.
What about when people have, in most relationships, someone's earning more than the other person in a relationship and they bring in more salary, but they're not the one who's financially conscious in the relationship? And do you feel like that's a recipe for success or disaster, when the person who's bringing more money in automatically makes all of the decisions about spending because naturally they feel like it's more their money?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's active as well and it's relevant?
Yeah, I mean, I have one client where the woman earns probably 7 times more than her partner.
God damn!
I know. And he feels that it's her money, whereas she's like, no, it's joint money. So it's really interesting. She wants to make all the decisions together. He's like, no, you just give me an allowance and I'll just spend a smaller amount, you know. But there is that you know, dynamic whereby we got one here, one there, and she's trying to bring them up on a level and he's trying to do that. So I think I don't necessarily think it's a recipe for either way. It's more, what do you do as a couple? If you are a couple that goes, I'm okay with having it split, I'm very much a believer that when I get a partner, I would like, no matter who's earning more, to have that level of like balance and like, yeah, between us. But you have to both be on the same page. And this is why it's so important to have money conversations with your partner. Be honest how much you're making, be honest. The amount of people that hide debt from their partners is insane. But obviously, the second you join your finances together, they impact each other, especially if you're looking to buy a house or get married or have a kid. Like.
So how do you ask on these dates that you're going on what someone's financial situation is like? Because if they have a hidden debt, that'd be probably a big red flag for you, wouldn't it?
Do you know what for me is, it's not even about, for me, a red flag is when someone has like a poor money mindset. Right. So it's really interesting because if we're like talking, I can obviously like pick up on things, because as a coach you pick up on language and you know, and obviously I say what my job is, and usually the biggest response is, oh my god, you need to help me, I'm so bad with money. It's not that turns me off, because I'm like, oh, I can coach them, I can help them. I think I probably wouldn't have a proper financial conversation with someone until like a couple of dates in. It feels a bit raw on the first one, like, how much do you make, do you have any debt? I think it might put them off a little bit.
Can we just do a soft credit check on you before we get the next round?
What's your postcode? So yeah, I'm yet to have a full conversation about something.
Right, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your time. And if anybody does want to reach out to you, you've dropped your Instagram, but do you want to just remind them where they can reach out to you? Because I feel like you could help a lot of people.
Thank you. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and I have a podcast called Mind, Money, Soul. And yeah, they're the main I am on YouTube as well, but just not very often. So yeah, all pretty much Laura Anmore everywhere.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.